Welcome everyone to History Gone Wilder, part of Half History Will Travel. I am your host, the Wilder Historian, and this video marks the end of the Battle of Chickamauga animation. By this Sunday, I should have the approach to the battle, both days of fighting, and the retreat put together in one complete video. George Thomas's strong line around Kelly Field had remained virtually unmoved. Repeated Confederate attacks had stalled out, but the blue troops around Kelly Field could hear the battle raging in their rear on Horseshoe Ridge. Now Union forces were withdrawing from Horseshoe Ridge. It must have come with some relief when George Thomas returned to Kelly Field from Horseshoe Ridge and began to tell his division commanders how the withdrawal back to Chattanooga would proceed. From south to north, each division would begin marching north toward McFarland Gap. Confederate commanders in this sector had resolved to use long-range firing and skirmishing to harass the Union line. This type of fighting resulted in little damage, but it did kill Edward King, and his brigade would be taken over by Milton Robinson. With Union troops caving in on Horseshoe Ridge, Longstreet urged the division of Alexander P. Stewart to begin a movement against Kelly Field at about the same time as Thomas planned the withdrawal. Reynolds' two brigades would move out first, making their way up the Lafayette Road. It would be their job to clear out the McDonald Farm, which was swarming with Confederate regiments, to provide a safe route toward Chattanooga. Next was the brigades of Gross and Cruft, but as they pulled away, the Confederate brigades in their front began to move toward the position. John K. Jackson's brigade made contact with Scribner's Union brigade. Close behind was the brigade under Lucius Polk from Claiborne's division. When Stewart's division moved forward, Clayton's brigade found abandoned breastworks from Reynolds' men, so they moved ever so cautiously, at first unaware of the removal of Union troops. Turchin and Robinson smashed into the flank of St. John Liddell's division on the McDonald Farm, taking them completely by surprise. Once they had cleared out Walthall and Govan's brigades, they formed on the right of McCook's brigade, acting as a rear guard for the rest of the brigades to make it to McFarland Gap. When it was Starkweather's turn to withdraw, Polk's brigade was already attacking his front. In that instant, he believed it would be more dangerous to withdraw than stay and fight, but then he thought if the rest of the army was withdrawing, he would be left on the field and subject to complete capture, so he began to fall back as more rebel brigades closed in on their position. The added pressure by the Confederate brigades caused the rest of the Union troops to pull back to avoid complete and total capture. The withdrawal around Kelly Field resulted in a close call for the Federals, but they had made it out of their predicament without any major damage. By the morning of September 21st, the Army of the Cumberland fortified Rossville Gap and positioned troops along Missionary Ridge. If Bragg did advance and attack, it would result in a bloody endeavor. Nathan Bedford Forrest climbed to the top of Missionary Ridge, then climbed a tree to get a better view, and reported to Bragg that the whole Union army was in retreat. He was wrong, however. What he saw was Union wagon trains and wounded moving toward Chattanooga, but he failed to mention the mass of Federal troops on Missionary Ridge guarding the city. Bragg eventually dispatched Polk's wing of the army north to the Red House Bridge, but the movement of the Army of Tennessee was slow because of a lack of wagons. The reinforcements from Virginia, East Tennessee, and Mississippi made the army even larger, and many of those units had come by rail, foregoing their wagons, so Bragg would have to rely on railroads to supply his troops. By the end of the day on the 21st, Rosecrans' army filed into the former Confederate entrenchments around Chattanooga. Various Union infantry and cavalry guarded pivotal locations along Missionary Ridge. Eventually, those troops would be driven in by Confederate cavalry. Bragg's infantry would follow, with Longstreet moving through Rossville Gap and Polk's men traversing Missionary Ridge. The battle had been deadly for both sides, resulting in the second bloodiest battle of the Civil War, second only to Gettysburg. The Union lost 1,657 killed, 9,756 wounded, and 4,757 missing and captured, for a total of 16,170. The Confederacy lost 2,312 killed, 14,674 wounded, and 1,468 missing or captured, for a total of 18,454. The battle ruined the career of William S. Rosecrans, who would be replaced by George Thomas. The Confederate Corps commanders would come together in an effort to oust Braxton Bragg from Army Command, but come up unsuccessful. Nevertheless, Bragg would be facing not just a new Army commander in Thomas, but he would soon come face to face with the man who had been winning victories for the Union in the West, Ulysses S. Grant. For the next few months, the Army of the Cumberland and the Army of Tennessee would face off in siege warfare around Chattanooga.